So now that we've got a blank composition, we need to fill it with some layers. You can make a new layer at any time by right-clicking in the left section of the timeline, clicking New, and then selecting the type of layer you want to make. Out of this list, we only have to worry about these four. Text layers are obviously to create text fields that work a lot like other Adobe software. Shape layers allow you to create any type of shape or shape combinations using their preset shape tools or the pen tool. Solid layers generate a composition-sized color, but unfortunately you can't change that color once you set it the first time. So most of the time you're better off just using a shape layer. Lastly, there are nulls, which are a little bit weirder. Imagine they're like a clear piece of plastic that we can attach other layers to. And when you move that piece of plastic, everything associated with it also moves. It's just a great way to control elements of your scene, and I'll explain more about that later. Okay, and now with our new composition, the first thing we're going to do is create a text layer. And here we can type in our first skill, which for me is going to be design. So let's just type that in. Once we have our first text layer, we are going to duplicate it. This is one of the only keyboard shortcuts I'm going to make you remember, and that's Command D, and that duplicates it. So we're going to click on the layer and hit Command D on our keyboard, and we're actually going to do that twice. So we have 3 layers, and we are just going to drag these down each individually. So now we have 3 words that we can change. So I'm going to make my second one animation, and I'm going to make the last one, which I need to select the layer first, illustration. Okay, so now that we've got all our text layers, let's actually make it look good. So let's look at our palette, and I took a screenshot of that, so I'm just going to import that screenshot. And I'm going to import it by right-clicking on the project window, import, file, and then going to my desktop where my screenshot is, and opening it. Now with that screenshot here, I can just drag it into my composition, and boom, we have my palette. And I'm just going to grab the anchors at the side and holding Shift to maintain its proportions. I'm going to make it small, move it off to the side. Now we can actually add some color, and we'll start with the background. We are going to create a new shape layer. Click on Fill, make sure it is our color. Stroke doesn't matter as long as it's 0 points. And then we're going to hover over a rectangle tool and double click it. That will give us a perfect composition sized shape filled in with this color. And the best part is that we can change it to any color we want without having to worry about going into any settings. So now with our background, and I'm going to label it. To label a layer, you just click on it and hit enter. And I'm going to label this background. And now we can style our text. This is where I hope everybody gets a little creative. You could choose whatever fonts you want. I'm going to walk you through what my thinking is. First, I'm going to change the typeface. So I'm going to select all 3 layers. And in my character box, I'm going to type in Arial Black, which is the typeface I think I want to use. All right, so I like that typeface. Now I'm going to think about how big they are. So at any point, you can click on these text layers and resize them. Shift, if you hold Shift, you maintain their proportions. So I am going to just start playing around with how I want these text layers to look. I'm thinking I want them all to be around the same width, but all at different sizes. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball that here. Design as we go, so we'll just kind of figure this out. So I think that looks kind of nice. I'm going to add some more leading in between the type. I'm just eyeballing this. Okay, but I kind of like that. I'm going to hide this screenshot. Now that I kind of like this lockup as these 3 together, I'm going to create a null object, which I'm going to right click and go to New Null Object. I'm going to hit Enter on my keyboard to rename it. and I'm going to call it type controller. And then we'll do something called parenting. With all of your text layers selected, grab this swirly looking button called the pick whip and drag it to the new null we just created and let go. So when you parent two layers together, you've got a parent layer and a child layer. The child will always follow the parent, but the parent won't follow the child. So if, for example, you rotate a parent, the child will rotate around with the parent. But if you were to rotate the child, the parent wouldn't move at all. If that's confusing, don't sweat it. I promise it'll make more sense as we go along. Now that our type is pretty enough and parented to a null, we can start working on our timeline and actually animate something.